Welcome to the channel. I am the King Koopa. Thank you for stopping by. In today's video, we are going to be installing coilovers on our 04 Silverado, the WorkTruck. We're going to be getting rid of those junk torsion bars. This is for the 4x4 guys. The 2.0 guys will have springs on the front control arms. The torsion bars, if you've never heard of them, it's a long metal bar that mounts halfway back into the frame, and that connects to the lower control arm. And as you hit bumps, your lower control arm's moving, and that's twisting the bar, and that's going to rebound, and that's what keeps the front end up on the truck. So we're going to be scrapping that whole system, and we're going to be doing with some Viking coilovers. These are double adjustable for compression and rebound. Super high performance. I'm really excited for this. This is some big boy steps right here. And on top of that, since we are going to be going lower, we're going to be getting rid of the nasty 3-inch wheel gap I got on the front end. So it's going to end up matching the rears, but we're going to be going lower. And for that, I am going to be running some IHC tubular, stay, no, stay, okay. I am going to be running some IHC tubular upper control arms. These are camber correcting, so it has threaded rods that go in here on these little clevises, turnbuckles, whatever you want to call them. They spin, so it can adjust to fix the camber for lower trucks. This is for like 3 to 6 inch drop on the front end. These are some heavy duty, expensive boys, so I'm excited for that too. Probably don't need them with the size of the drop that we're going to do, but you never know. I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. I know this is a really long video, so if you're in the garage right now and you need some specific questions answered, I'm going to put a table of contents up right now. That's going to show all the times, so you can just jump right to that time, get your questions answered, and get back in the garage. If you do have a specific question or something about the truck, you can put them in the comments below. I'm usually pretty quick to reply to those, or you can DM me on Instagram at the King Koopa. And if I did answer your question, be sure to hit that sub button. Thanks for watching. So the main thing we're going to gain from these bad boys is it's going to help our ride quality improve a lot better. And on top of that, at top end speeds, it's going to be a lot stiffer, feel like it's on rails. Because currently with the torsion bars, once you get the truck up to about 100 miles an hour, she really starts to float. You barely move that steering wheel. She'll kind of go side to side like this, and it doesn't feel safe at all. So this is going to help us out. And with these, we can fix the wheel gap. I bought these from AFP, the Atomic Fab and Performance. This was about a $1,000 kit. Comes with the springs, the shocks, the brackets, everything you need to do this conversion on a 4x4 truck. Those shocks do not come assembled like that. I had to assemble that myself, but Atomic Fab and Performance does have a good little install video for assembling those shocks. So it's super easy. I didn't want to go super in depth on that, but these shocks are pretty fancy. They have up to 18 clicks of adjustments on the compression and rebound. So you can really tune those shocks for comfort, for handling, for autocross, if you're drag racing under 600 horsepower, if you're drag racing 600 to 900, and if you're drag racing more than 900 horsepower. So these shocks are way, come on, bud. These shocks are way better than what levels we're going to be putting our truck through. Let's go. Woo! The product link for those shocks are going to be in the description below. So again, I appreciate you guys for watching my videos and all the subs. So let's get started. This kit comes with a whole bunch of goodies. We have our installation papers, double spanner wrenches, our top post bushings. Not exactly sure what these are for, but we're going to figure that out. We have the top and lower brackets, new bump stops, and we do have the shocks themselves. Since we are adding upper control arms and the shocks, those are two different variables that we're going to be adjusting. So we're going to start out with just the shocks by themselves. We're going to lower the truck down, get the ride height set so the springs and everything are exactly where they need to be. After that, we'll pull the front wheels back off, put the upper control arms on, and then we can kind of get these, twist these in or out wherever we need to be so that the camber on the truck is somewhat close so the wheels are pretty straight so we can drive it to the alignment shop. So we're going to take them one step at a time. Nice, clean, and crisp. And the nice thing about those is they are silver, so it'll match the whole front end of the truck. It'll match the wheels, be looking nice. So let's get the front end jacked up. We already got the rears chalked. First thing we're going to do is remove the shock. This has a double jam nut at the top with a washer and a bushing. After that, there's a single bolt down at the bottom. You might have to put a jack underneath the control arm to take weight off the shock. Now that we got these shocks out, we can use our GM torsion bar unloading tool, whatever that is, I don't have one. We're gonna take all the preload off the torsion bars and pull the bars out. The next step, we are going to remove our torsion bars, the torsion keys. This is the front of the truck, that's the back of the truck. These are what hold up the front end of the suspension. There is still weight on this torsion key right here holding this little barrel nut in, so we're going to put our GM torsion bar unloading tool right here that's going to clamp around, push the key up so that way we can pull this barrel out. We don't have one of those, so we're going to make do with a C-clamp. Be careful with this, it's a little stressful and a little sketch. So after that, the key will come down and we can slide the torsion bar out once there's no weight on it. Okay. Boom, just like that. So my truck is pretty clean, doesn't have a whole lot of rust on it, but for removing rusted or stuck torsion bar keys, you really got like 3 options. We jacked the back of the truck up to give us more room since we don't have a lift. We used a punch and a hammer, a 4-pound hammer, started beating on it. It wouldn't come out. That cross member there does have bushings on both ends, so as you're beating on it, it is wiggling a little bit, so I think that's kind of taking some of the blow. The second option is you could use like a blowtorch or acetylene torches. So you could heat the keys up. That's definitely probably the #1 recommended option for stuck torsion keys, is heat them up, get them nice and warm, and then beat them with a hammer. So the keys really aren't that rusted. We tried to lube them up with PB Blast, let them soak. We tried to pound them out with a 4-pound hammer. We tried the air chisel, and that still didn't work. So my father was generous enough to bring his oxygen and acetylene tanks over. So we're going to torch them up. We got a rosebud tip on the torch, so it's just going to nice and heat it up, get it nice and red hot. And then either going to try the air chisel or pound back out. So one way or another, we're about to get it. But first, safety real quick for torching. So my dad does a bunch of welding and torching out in the garage, which is where I learned a lot of my skills. And he don't like welding with leather on or special covers or jackets. So we've bought him jackets for Christmas.
That's what that's from.
and because of it, he's got big scars. I walked in the barn one time and his whole arm was on fire. We used a first aid kit from the 1960s to dress it up.
Worked good.
It did work good. Everything was expired by like 40 years, but it still worked. So safety. So we got some heavy duty welding gloves. These are nice and thick. We have a welding blanket. This is a heat blanket, so it keeps you protected. We got a hood just in case. My dad doesn't like welding or torching with a hood. So we got some torch glasses. These things are really nice to use. Got a green lens in them. Keeps all the bad rays from burning out your eyeballs.
I'll wear those.
There you go, old man.
Thanks.
Is that how you're going to do it, with a cigar and a drink in your hand?
Nope, I'm going to put the drink down.
Another quick tip for torching. We got your oxygen and acetylene tanks here. You got to turn them on nice and slow. Crack them loose so it doesn't blow these seals inside here. Crack the left one a little bit, and you crack the right one a little bit, and you gotta fine tune it.
Hey, you want a tip like that? They're hard. Go ahead.
Let's go! One down. Boom! To pull the torsion bars out, we're going to have to take this sub cross member out. It's not structural. Here's the structural cross member right there. So you have a bolt running this way and a bolt on that side. There's a 21mm socket to take the bolt out.
There we are.
I have to twist it one way or get your end down first.
Right.
There we go. Got the bar twisted out the end. Here we go. Nice. So if your truck is rusty regarding underneath with these torsion bars, you're definitely going to have a really difficult time. And I definitely start pre-soaking everything like a week or two ahead of removing those. PB Blast will definitely help out a lot. Now that we have the old bump stop cups cut off, we're going to torch off the other side just to speed up the process a little bit. Now we are going to trim this corner of where the old bump stop used to be. We're about 2.5 inches over and about 1 3/4 inches over. We drew with red paint markers and a line to meet them both in the middle. We're going to be cutting this part off with a torch. You could use a Sawzall for this part, but a torch is just going to be a little bit faster. So we're going to be using our heat blanket to cover everything up, and the CV boot, make sure that doesn't get burned up. There, you want Thor's hammer?
Well, I just need it small.
Put that one in there. You ain't gonna be able to fit it. So we got this side all wrapped up. We got the nice notch out. We hit it with a grinder. Got this edge down. And we got the bottom of the cup ground down smooth so there's no edges. And Pops is cutting off the other side with the torch right now. Now we're going to be installing the lower bump stop. So this is traditionally the bump stop set this way. We're actually going to be drilling a hole in the lower control arm and setting the bump stop facing upwards. This is a 3/8 stud, so it's a universal bump stop. So we're just going to be drilling a 3/8 hole. If we center it, since we did notch the frame, it does make good contact, but it's just barely close to where we notched the frame at. But the farther you go out on here, it's going to have less strength and meat to grab onto on the lower control arm. The lower bump stop is mounted with the lock nut. We took a Sharpie and marked the contact patch where the bump stop will hit. So I think it's nice and solid. This wasn't perfectly centered on this little pad because it was hard to get a drill bit perfectly in there straight, but I think it worked out really nice. Next, we're going to be installing the lower bracket. This side, doesn't matter which side they go on, but once you get them installed, they'll look very similar to this, and it would be a good time to replace that bushing with the energy suspension bushing. It's pretty tight once you get that on, so it took a little coaxing with the rubber mallet. And if you do have the extra time, it might be wise to replace the rest of your bushings with energy suspension. Those bushings are kind of a pain in the butt to install, but they are stiffer and they last a lot longer. They're a lot better for high performance or autocrossing, stuff like that. So I will also have a link to that product in the description below, along with all the other stuff we are using today. Now we're going to be installing the upper brackets. This is probably the hardest part of the entire installation. So you're going to press these brackets in there, tight up against the frame vertically and tight into the top of the shock hoop. And then you're going to use a bolt or a welding clamp to clamp that nice and tight. The hole in the top of these brackets is oval. It's a little oblong, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. The top of the shock post will still be able to fit up inside there, but we did use a 9/16 socket to line those up inside here before we clamped it. Now that this is nice and tight, we're going to use these two holes as a pattern. We're going to drill nice and slow through both sides of the frame. After that, we can then install our bolts. We're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on here just to make sure that these don't ever back out. It does have a nylon lock nut on there. You don't want to torque these down really hard because you can actually crush the frame inside there. So once we get these tight, you only want 1 to 2 threads showing, just nice and tight. You want to German torque it so it's good and tight. Just don't crush the frame. Now that we got our hole drilled through both sides of the frame, we're going to take 2 little Q-tips with some Por 15 on them. We're going to run this inside the holes. This is going to keep that from corroding, create a nice good seal. We do not want this rusting a few years down the road and creating a weak point. And one more step before we put the bolt in, a little extra sense of security. We're going to be putting some blue Loctite on here, 2 to 3, maybe 4 drops, just to make sure this doesn't come out. You won't need this because we do have a nylon lock nut on there, but this is just in case. For the driver's side bolts, this side is going to be very difficult with extremely limited room to work. So to put the washer on, we have this extended arm that has the little claw on the end, so we have that gripping the washer, so we can finagle that up inside there, set that on the bolt, and then we can let go of the claw. And for the nuts, we're going to have to use some tape and finagle that up in there as well. Get that all the way up behind the frame and put it behind. You're going to need 2 people, so the second person can tighten the bolt while you hold the nut on. Took me about 5 minutes to get the first one done, so we'll see how fast this one goes. Just have some patience with this part. Quick tip for setting your bump stop adjustment. You're actually going to want to assemble your coilovers last. I jumped the gun and did not do that. So theoretically, you should notch the frame, install your bump stop and everything first, take the torsion bars out, and then you're going to want to set the bare shock into your control arms. Take a jack underneath the lower control arm, jack it all the way up, and figure out where the shock actually bottoms out at. Mark that on the shock shaft, and then you're going to want to install your bump stop and make sure that the bump stop, when you jack up the A-arm, hits the frame before the shock bottoms out. After that, you can assemble your coilover, get your desired ride height, and then you know for sure that once that shock is almost to bottoming out, the bump stop engages. So a quick summary of where we're at now. We got the frame cut out, we got the bump stop mounted, we have the lower bracket on, we got the shock mounted in place with the compression and rebound settings adjusted, and for the top we have washer, bushing washer, frame support, frame, another washer, and then you have your nut and jam nut on top. When we assembled our shock, we marked 3 lines on the shock shaft. The black is about where we're going to want the ride height to be for the shock's travel. The other 2 lines are just reference points. So now that we got this all wrapped up, we can put our wheels and tires on, set her on the ground, see where she sits. We're going to take her not even like a quarter mile down the road and come back just to get the ride height adjusted so the suspension settles. If we need to do any adjustments to the ride height, we'll bring her back, jack the truck up, taking the weight off the shocks, using our spanner wrench to spin the jam nuts down and make small adjustments from there. If you adjust the jam nuts with the weight of the truck on the shocks, you can actually mess those threads up, so make sure you don't do that. So we had a little bit of rubbing before. Right here, I don't know how long that chunk has been gone, but it definitely was rubbing right here. So now that we're going lower, it's probably going to be even worse. I think the front needs to come down just a tiny, tiny bit more. For a quick recap, we took her out, did the test drive, got the suspension to settle, brought her back home, had a little sketchy trying to whip it sideways. But on the shock shaft, there was 3 marks that we made, a black and 2 red lines. Those we made when we assembled the coilovers. I will include a link in the description below of the coilover assembly video done by AFP. I didn't want to do the coilover assembly video myself because they already had it covered and it would have made this video super long. So we had the 3 lines, the red, the top red, and the middle, the black. The black is about the middle of the shock shaft, and that's where we want the shock to sit at ride height. So right now, the shock is currently sitting in between the black and the top red, which means it's compressed too far. And if you look, you can't see the back, but the front end is it's not pretty low. But once we correct the camber out, it's definitely gonna be low and probably would be hitting the fender. So to fix that, we're gonna jack the truck up and take the jam nut off and then compress the shock. The more we compress the shock is going to push the suspension out farther so we can get the shock body back into the black mark on the shock shaft. That extra compression is going to give us the desired ride height. So let's jack her up, give the nuts a few turns, set her back down, and go test drive her again. Now that we are very close to our desired ride height, we are almost finished, but not yet. The next step we need to do is get the truck aligned. So you have two options for that. One, you can get your vehicle towed to the alignment shop, get it aligned, and you're ready to go. Option number two, you can do a half alignment on yourself. Option number two, we are going to hillbilly align it ourselves so that way we can drive it to the alignment shop. The reason that we are going to do that is because we changed the ride height, which brings our lower control arms and our upper control arms up. So as the tires go up, the camber on the wheels change, which puts all that pressure on the insides of the tire. And on top of that, as those control arms come up for our vehicle, our tie rods also come up, which in turn push the tires out. So right now, as the truck sits, our tires are cambered in and the toe edge is pushed out. So it's not a very good idea to drive it on the road. That's why our test drives were like an 1/8 mile down the road and back. If you were to take this on the highway right now, you would end up mad burning the rubber off the inside of the tires. Very similar to the lowered stance guys in the car community that have their wheels super cambered. They end up going through tires like every 2 months. So here are some quick tips so we can halfway align our vehicle and safely drive it to the alignment shop without burning off our tires. The first thing we're going to do is figure out how many degrees our wheels are cambered inward. You could just eyeball this, but instead we're going to be using a digital angle finder. We got this for like 20 bucks at Northern Tool or Harbor Freight or Amazon. We're going to be using our old school rosewood level. We're going to be setting this on the tire on top of both sets of tire stickers so that way it doesn't change our angle. We zeroed out this digital angle finder perfectly level, so when we turn it sideways, set it right here in the middle of the tire, it should read 90 degrees, and we're at 88.2, so that means the top of the tire needs to come 2 more degrees out away from the truck. How we are going to adjust the camber is we remove the wheel, and here is our upper control arm, the lower control arm, and we're going to be adjusting these camber plates right here, which is these half-moon crescent shaped plates on both sides of the upper control arm. How these work is there's a little guide pin on this side. We broke the nuts loose, and now we can turn this bolt in or out, and as I am turning it, the half-moon crescents are changing. The farther I go down with it, it is pushing the control arms inward. The higher I go with it, it is shoving the control arms outward. There's our digital angle finder reading 87.9, and that is fully down. And now that we shove the control arms up, which is pushing the A-arms out away from the truck, we can see it goes to 88.5. So we're going to shove that one all the way out and tighten the nut. Adjusting the other side brings it to 89.2. Got the tire tightened, got her back on the ground. We are going to give her one last check, and we're at 89 degrees, so we're still 1 degree off of the camber, but I think that's good enough to drive. Changing that camber did help the toe edge just a little bit, but it's still not perfectly straight, so let's check that. So we're going to take a tape measure across the front of the tires, and we're going to put them both on the same notch on both sides so they're the middle of the tire. Right about there, and we are at 66 1/4. Now for the back, we're about 66 1/2, so we're still pretty close, but we could adjust the tire rods just a little bit. Here's the quick tutorial to adjust the toe edge, which we're going to be using our tie rods. This is the inner tie rod, the outer tie rod. Normally you would have a jam nut here. I have these strengthened tie rod supports made from Kryptonite. This keeps your inner tie rod from bending. This is our jam nut. So we are going to break this loose, spin that back a little bit. Now we can take our cotter key out, break the nut loose on our outer tie rod. Before we take the nut off, we're going to give her just a little bit of a love tap. There we go. Pull her up. There we go. And now we're just going to give her like 1 or maybe 2 spins to bring this outer tie rod in a few degrees. All right, that's it. Now we're going to shove her back in there. We're going to put our nut back on, torque her back down. Now would definitely be a good time to grease all your Zerk fittings. You got 1 for the upper and lower ball joints, 1 for the inner and outer tie rods, 1 for your sway bar, and you will also have 1 way back up in here for your pitman and idler arms on your center link. Got that torque back down. Now we can shove our cotter key back in here. Now we can tighten our jam nut back up. We have now adjusted both tie rods. We are finished with the toe edge alignment. We redid our measurements on the front and back of the tire, and they are pretty close. So it's official now. We can drive down the road to the alignment shop, which I've already done. Went to the same shop who aligned my white truck, and they actually said I did a really good job. The toe edge was out just a little bit, so they were able to get that back into specs, and now she rides like a dream. But speaking of riding like a dream, we haven't talked about setting the compression and rebound settings yet on the shocks. So these shocks can go anywhere from comfort setting to handling to autocross to drag racing under 600 horsepower, drag racing at 600 to 900 horsepower, and fully built drag racing over 900 horsepower. So these shocks can be either super comfortable or way bigger than what this truck really needs. And the best part about it, I'm about to show you right now how to adjust them. It's super, super simple. You got those 2 knobs on the front, you got the compression and rebound. So you're just gonna turn those knobs a click. They have between 1 to 18 clicks of adjustment. Since these coilovers are on the front, we're only looking at that top bar on the chart. For the C, the compression, comfort is 1 to 4, handling's 8 to 10, autocross is 10 to 14, and basically the drag racing is 12 and up, depending on how much power you're running. Same thing with the rebound knob, 4 to 8, 10 to 14, 14 to 18. And if you're drag racing with heavy horsepower, you want little rebound, so that's anywhere from 0 to 8. We're about to go for a test drive and check how these shocks feel. We're going to be taking my doggies with me and dropping them off at my parents' house so they can have a little doggy play date with my parents' dog. So we're going to be setting the compression and rebound for the comfort settings. We turned our tire out of the way. Both knobs are zeroed out, which is all the way to the left counterclockwise. Now we're going to adjust the compression to 2. 1, 2. And we're going to adjust the rebound to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're all done. You want to go for a ride? You ready to go? Let's go. This is going to be interesting putting them in the single cab with no center console. Kiara, go. All right, make room. Nala, you're up. Nala, go. Come on, Nala. All right, okay. So she's not bad. She's not too rough. The doggies seem okay with it. First impressions, I think I'm pretty happy with it. These coilovers are definitely impressive, that's for sure. This is like a night and day improvement over the torsion bars. On my last video, I had Max ride in the car, and he was saying it kind of rides rough like a 3500 or something. So I kind of want to have him back in the truck and have him ride with it again and see how much it's changed. But we still have a couple more adjustments to do. Cruising right now, it's fine. It's nice and smooth. There is a small shake to the truck, but I think part of that is from running the large 22s. As soon as I swapped out the 17-inch wheels to the 22-inch wheels, going to a smaller tire, it doesn't absorb as much of the impact, so it definitely rides a lot rougher to begin with. I haven't hit any major potholes with it yet. I do kind of want to hit some bumps up here somewhere. It does kind of have like a little bit of a constant shakiness to it. Oh, your head's right in the way. I don't really like that too much. Alright, so I just pulled up to stop. We're going to change the compression rebound a little bit, go to a little bit higher of a setting, and see how she rides. Alright, so we're at 6 on the compression and 9 on the rebound. So we're going about 35 miles an hour, maybe 40 miles an hour right now. I'm going to hit some bumps. Ooh, that one's kind of big. So it takes it with ease, definitely a little bit rougher. I noticed that constant bounciness isn't there anymore, so that's a nice feel. I think I like this setting a lot better. This is pretty much the setting that I've been driving around on for like the last couple days. Alright, here we go. Last setting test. So I set the compression to 17, so almost fully maxed out, and I set the rebound to like 4. Jeez, I feel like you can feel every stone on this driveway. Alright, let's pull out onto the road. I feel like you can feel every line in the asphalt. Oh my goodness. This is definitely a game changer for sure. Oh yeah, you can definitely feel the truck shaking off the road. This is insane. This is way too stiff. I'm not even gonna finish my drive. I'm actually about to pull over right now to change the settings back. This install really wasn't that difficult. It did take a couple of days, but it is very tedious. So you are going to need some patience, especially with adjusting the coilovers, figuring out your bump stop limits, trying to get your alignment back into spec so you can drive the truck. For some of you guys, this might not just be a one-day modification. I'd say it's probably like a 6 out of a 10 on my scale, maybe a 7, just because having to get the torsion keys out was a pain in the butt, and my truck really isn't that rusted. So if you have a truck that's extremely rusted, you're definitely going to need a torch, so good luck with that. And cutting the frame, notching it there with the torch. My father basically did all that, so that was easy for me. And this modification is not just for the 4x4 trucks. If you have a 2-wheel drive, AFP does make brackets for you as well if you wanted to run coilovers instead of your traditional coils up front. And before we do wrap up this video, our camber is almost maxed out at 89 degrees. So you can only go so far with those camber plates on the factory settings. Once you start getting so low, you are going to have to go with some tubular upper control arms. These are from IHC. This will be my next video, so we're going to be installing these. These are camber correcting upper control arms. These have clevises on the end to where you can spin the ball joint out. These will help fix a 3 to 6 inch drop in the front. These are some super heavy duty units, which should be a fairly quick install, so stay tuned for that. If you're interested in that modification, make sure you turn the post notifications on so you guys will get the video as soon as it's posted. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments below. And if I did miss anything or any key components, make sure you put them in the comments so all the other fellow subscribers can see. And if you're bored, make sure you go check out my last video where we pick up our 6.0 LQ9 motor. So that's getting prepped. We're going to put 410 gears in the rear of this truck after we get it aligned. And once the 410 gears are in, we're going to be pulling the motor out so we can get this LQ9 motor prepped. So stay tuned for that, guys. Hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for all the views and the subscribes. I'll catch you guys in next week's video. Peace.